Hey guys, and welcome back to the Nicola Collective Podcast with your host Emilio.
And Olivia Nicola.
And we're going to talk about the work before the reward.
Open up.
Now, this is a subject that people don't really open up about, especially on social media, yet it's the place where most of us live.
Yeah. It's definitely something where I feel like a lot of people skip out on the work part and just want to get to the reward part. And we're often misled by a lot of people on the internet to make us think that we're just supposed to be in our reward process or
instant gratification.
Instant gratification again, like we talked about before, like instantly getting to where we want to be, but not understanding what it takes to get there.
Yeah, there was something that I recently just saw, and I know I saw it before, but it was a good reminder. It was the fact that 20% of your income or 20% of your efforts is going to produce 80% of your income, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, when you look at the 20%, you don't just say, I'm only going to put 20% effort into it. It means you still do the 100% effort, but 20% of that will be what makes the most of it. However, like, you don't know exactly what that 20% is until you've experienced everything, right? Yeah. So you still have to put in 100% effort to make sure that everything's running smoothly. But yeah, 20% makes the 80%. Now, what a lot of people want you to think on social media, mainly because, followers, and they want people to see their content, is the fact that you could do something super simple. You could use Canva, you could use ChatGPT, you could use whatever, and create something for everybody to buy. And they're like, yeah, do it, and everyone's going to buy it. In reality, there's a ton of people that are doing the same exact thing as you, and chances are they already have that experience, so they already refined their product. So people already have that credibility, and they're doing really well. And another part of instant gratification is that money easily earned is easily lost. Yeah. That's a big phrase that we've learned since we were kids, is that money easily earned easily got is easily gone.
Yeah. And then also it's important to remember too, like, if you like to not give up during the times where it's like you're still in like the work season of life where you're trying to work and get to the point where you can reap. It's like there's a lot of times where people are like, that's when they give up, like right before they're about to reap. And
the hardest part is when you're getting to the top of the mountain. That's when your calves start to hurt. That's when your thighs are starting to give, and you're like, great, I can't climb any further. But in reality, you're 2 feet away from hitting the pinnacle.
Well, and God says too, like, if you don't give up, you will reap the harvest. So, I mean, and that sometimes can be taken out of context too. Like, obviously, like within His will, and within accurate, like if it's as long as it's according to like His word too.
Exactly.
So like obviously, like if you're working really hard for something and God's already given you the vision on what you're supposed to do and kind of like your entrepreneurship journey or just like in your business, whatever you're doing, then it's important to know that like you're going to receive that, but you have to put in the work first before you're going to reap the reward.
Exactly. And so it's like you literally reap what you sow. If you didn't sow anything into it, how do you expect to reap from it? And that's the issue that we have with instant gratification, and biblically we have against instant gratification, is because if you're putting no effort, how are you supposed to collect on it? It's almost like throwing a bunch of seed and like into the road and expecting there to be flowers growing straight in the middle of your intersection. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to happen. Maybe there's like one thing that catches in a crack, but it's going to get choked out.
And a lot
eventually.
of the times people don't even realize like the little like effort that they're giving every single day is actually building something, and they can't really see what they're building, like we said before. But it's like you can't really see what God is doing or what you're contributing to like the next part.
Like, I was maybe like 11 or 12 years old when I heard this analogy, but it's about a specific bamboo tree, right? And it grows short, like for a long time. It stays short. The trunk isn't very long, but it has to grow its roots deep. Now, you don't get to see its roots grow deep, and it's grabbing into it. It's getting nutrients from the soil, and it's going far and it's going wide. Yeah. And then years go by, and then all of a sudden this thing just shoots right up. Yeah. Right? And it has a stable foundation. It has everything that it can to be able to get all the nutrients it needs to be able to stand upright and strong. Yeah. But you don't get to see that until the long, like, just
Yeah.
you had to wait for the long haul.
It's really difficult to work and without seeing any sort of results, because I know for us, like, we've gone through seasons where it's like we keep working and we're like, we don't know where we're gonna, like, where this work is really getting us, or if we're even gonna do anything with this. And it's like sometimes you might not, sometimes you will, but it's all contributing to like what, like, to having a successful, stable career.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
the success is really the fact that it's now stronger on all platforms and not just making you money.
Yeah.
Success, money isn't success. There's a whole bunch of different factors that contribute to it.
Yeah. And also, like, too, like, Jesus spent 30 years preparing for 3 years of public ministry. So he spent all this time, because he was a carpenter, so he spent time, like, by himself preparing, like, obviously for what was to come. And that took time. Nobody saw him do that. You know, we only know pretty much, I mean, we know partly.
There was a
of his
couple stories
and
of his
stuff.
childhood.
Yeah, of his
and-
childhood.
yeah.
But nothing, like, compares to, like, the 3 years of, like, actually traveling around and healing people and his ministry.
Ministering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
obviously ultimately going to die on the cross. Like, that was the biggest part of, I don't want to say
And
his
we-
career, but it's like
'cause-
almost like if you think about it,
yeah.
like that, it is his, what he's
what he set out to
what
do.
he's known for and what he set out to do.
Yeah, like if you look at it, it's like so many people, like it's an amazing, miraculous story of how God loves us and how he saves us.
Yeah.
But people forget that there was so much preparation into it, and God being man was prepared, one, like already,
Yeah.
but two, as man he prepared for 30 years, right? Like you're
Yeah.
saying, it's like he didn't just sit around like one day like, all right, it's time to go,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like he prepared. He
Yeah.
was in the synagogues. He was, out listening. He
Yeah.
was observing. He wouldn't be able to call out the Pharisees if he didn't observe what they were doing. If he didn't observe what was going on
Yeah.
in,
And I think a lot of times we can get really impatient too, because
Mm-hmm.
we're not like Jesus. But even I know at some point Jesus had to become impatient at some point. I mean, he's obviously experienced every single thing that we have. So it's like impatience might have been one of them.
I wouldn't say impatient,
But
but
just the feeling of like wanting to do something already.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, if he's obviously experienced every single temptation known
Yeah.
to man, there had to be something where he's like, I just want to like do it already, or I just want to get through this already, or it's like I just want to skip to the part of like not having to die after dying on the cross. Like, obviously that happened. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like just like so excited to go do that. Like, he wanted to get to the next part, kind of, or be removed from the situation.
like
if
he
could've.
knew, he was
So-
like, "Okay, take this cup from me if
Yeah.
it's in your will." But
Yeah.
he also knew, like, let your will be done, Father.
So I think
overall. So it's like,
in life too, it's like sometimes it's like God allows us to just go through the things that we have to go through in order to be prepared for the next part of our for the reward.
Like-
And I think for every single thing, this goes for everything too, just in life. Like, not only for your business, it's like, but yeah, specifically in a business sense, it's like you could spend many years being prepared for that one moment you were supposed to do something, or supposed to, jump on something at the right time, or, like whatever, like, or just being prepared for like that next thing that you're supposed, what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it's like,
Jesus experienced everything that we've ever experienced. And not in the sense of using a smartphone, not in the sense of making a phone call or using a TV. But he experienced impatience. And not in the sinful way that we experience today, not in the sense of our selfish, carnal, fleshly desires, in a sense of divine urgency, right? Because when you look at it, like Olivia brought up a good point a while ago, talking about how it's like, how long should I wait for you? How long should I, X, Y, and Z? It's like, how long? That's kind of a form of impatience, but not necessarily the way that we look at it, but in a divine urgency. When we look at impatience, we look at it as, I need it now because I want it now, and not, I want it now because I need it now. I want to see this happen for the benefit, and that's where it comes down to like reaping and sowing. Like if you use the analogy of reaping and sowing, it's talking about agriculture. When you sow a seed, you not only, in order to reap it, you have to nurture it, you have to water it, you have to till the soil, you have to make sure that the environment is good for it. You have to put a lot of extra work. And even when, like, say it comes down to a tree in agriculture, you can't just water it and it's okay. You have to prune back some of the bad stuff too.
Yeah.
So it'll grow and it'll have some extra branches. And in order for the fruit to be good, to be healthy, you need to prune back some of those branches. Sometimes it's just unnecessary things, and sometimes it's, bad branches. So that's a bit of the agricultural analogy of reaping and sowing, but it's also about nurturing. So that goes into your business. So when you look at sowing into your business, you're looking at, what are you investing your time in? What education are you looking into? What are you spending your time with? Who are you spending time with? And how is it going to build? Then over time, like, you have your successful business, it's already moving, but what are you doing to maintain its health? Are you pruning back the branches? Are you checking the fruit? Are you checking for rotten fruit? Are you protecting it from birds of prey, I guess you could say, from things that are going to damage it? What are you looking at? What are you doing?
And I think, like, in those years before you truly get to what you're meant to be doing, or like, and for everybody has a different timing for their
Yeah.
business and stuff. Like, some people get there in a year, some people get there in 30 years. It really depends on the work you're willing to put in. And also, like, I think when God sees your faith in action, and also your, like, he knows when you're prepared and ready to move on to your next stage in your business, in your life, in anything.
And sometimes you feel like you're prepared, but he knows that you're not.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel like you're not prepared, and he knows that you are.
Yeah.
Because he's not, like the phrase goes, God qualifies the called, not called the qualified.
Yeah. So it's like, sometimes we're going to be doing stuff that we never even expected we'd be doing, but he saw the picture that you couldn't see. So
Exactly.
It's like leading you to that next phase in your business. And it's like, it's really easy to want to just get to the reward part. Like, but the work that comes with, I think there's joy in the work before the reward. Like, it makes you feel like you actually got there. It doesn't make you feel like it. It's like you are getting there with God instead of just trying to get there yourself. And I think a lot of the times, like, in today's society, they tell you have to do it yourself. Nobody's coming to save you, and nobody's coming to help you. And the truth is that that's just not true. We have someone who is there with us and who is willing to help us and who will get us through it. And it's like, that's the thing that makes us successful. Like, I think people mistake, their work for being their work, and in reality, it's like, yeah, you may have put in the work, but, like, God got you to your destination. Like, God brought you through it. He gave you the ability to do the work. So it's like, that's the thing. Like, we can't remove God from the equation just in when it comes to this stuff, because I think it's easy to be like, if we just put in the right steps, or the right amount of, work, or right amount of practice, whatever you're doing, like, it's easy to just be like, okay, like, I'm putting in the work, I don't really need God. But it's like, God is the one that will get you to your next destination. You know what I mean?
Starting off in the morning, literally, he's the one that puts breath in your lungs. He's the one that keeps the blood flowing through your veins. He's doing everything to keep you alive. So obviously, he's already at the start of your day. He's the reason why you can continue just in the basic parts of life. Yeah.
So that's why, I think it's like, we're not meant to, like, also to just constantly be in a state, like, of, like, mountaintops, because then we would never realize the valleys that got us to the mountain. Like, we'd never realize how far we've come through the valleys to get to those mountaintops. And it's like, I think a lot of the times, like, in life, we're just waiting for those mountaintops. Like, we're waiting for the seasons where we're gonna be in, like, those places. But I think throughout life, the times where I think you can find yourself actually like relying on God and fully surrendered and actually find joy in these moments are like in the valleys when you're actually having to use all you got to rely on him, because it's like you literally have no other choice, and you also are he's also strengthening you also are being strengthened during those moments too, so you're able to be ready for those mountaintop seasons. So it's like, I think too, like if we were just in the mountaintops, there would be no need to like talk to God about things or rely on him and stuff. And it's like he really sets us up so that we're like having to be reliant on him through everything. And I think that's like the best thing for us, you know?
Yeah. And honestly, with that same exact thought in mind, think of like going to the grocery store. It's a whole bunch of, instant gratification. You grab the stuff that you want, you check out, you're good. But if you were to actually be the person who grew the food, start a garden if you want. But like, there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of work that comes into it in order to just get one little box of strawberries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let alone even getting close to getting a box of strawberries if you're growing it on your own. There's a lot of work into it, and people don't realize what actually goes on behind the scene. They just see the end result and they think they can have it right away. Yeah. And sure, if business was like a grocery store, sure, by all means, that's what it's going to be like. But it's not. There's a lot of work that's involved, and there's a lot of dying to yourself that you have to go through when it comes to making sure that your business is thriving and actually working in accordance with God.
Yeah. It's an important point to bring up of like working, actually like putting in the work before the reward. Like that is something where it's like a lot of people, like I think that's something where a lot of people mess up when they think like, oh, I can just do a little bit of this and I'll get there really quickly. But it's like, no, in reality, we see all throughout the Bible, there's like consistently people who had to put in a lot of work in order to get to where they were at, but also they fully trusted and relied in God and had faith that he was going to carry them through. So it's like, it's the same in business. It's the same in business where you're like, you have to, what's the saying where it's like faith to actually see the reward?
Faith without works is dead.
Yeah. Faith without works is dead. Yeah. Without having faith in your works and everything that you're doing, you will have nothing. So, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, faith can carry you only so far. And if you're not listening, if you're not doing the works that God is calling you to, then there's no reach, there's no building. And in your business, it's just going to sit stagnant. And a lot of people kind of do that thinking like, oh, well, I'm just trying to be humble. I'm just trying to, have this like little, what's it called? What's the word? They're just trying to be small about it because they don't want to seem big, because they think that it's wrong to be big. And it's not the fact that being big is wrong, and it's not the fact that being big is not wrong. The fact of the matter is that if you're just sitting on your hands doing nothing, even though you were called to do something with it, that's where it becomes wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And God gets to choose. He has the final say of whether or not you build big or if you build a medium size, whatever thing you're doing, whoever you're reaching, God has the final say.
I think like the work aspect of the work before the reward, because when you get to the reward part and you reap the reward, you want to also remember that who got you to that place, where you go next from here, so that you're not just in like a low valley again. Sometimes that's where we are, but like so that we're able to get to a point where we don't have to experience some of the like negative stuff that we experienced before during our work parts.
Another thing on top of that, just kind of combining the last point and the point you just made, is that faith without works is dead. But another thing that you can think about is work without faith is also kind of screwed up too. It's like if you work and you have nothing to go for, you have nothing to strive for, no end goal, and no faith and direction, then what's the whole point of doing what you're working for,
Yeah.
And that brings us to the point, remember who you're working for, right? So in Galatians 3:23 to 24, it says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Skip a little bit. It is the Lord Christ you're serving. When you remember that you're working for God, not for likes, not for shares, not for subscribers, not to just be seen, you see a whole lot better results. More significant results. And not in the sense of significance as in large scale, but significance as in the importance of it.
Then you're able to also see where God was in these situations as well.
Mm-hmm. The reward, right? The reward isn't just the fact that you're making money financially or you're doing anything financial. The reward isn't just the fact that you got new viewership or new anything. Sometimes it's internal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just external. Sometimes it's the courage that you built.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's,
the
knowledge, the
not giving
perseverance.
up,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to like keep going even when you feel like nothing's working.
Even when there's like construction workers outside banging on the walls like crazy and you're just like going insane.
Yeah.
But you persevere.
So even like through the times where you're not going to be able like just not giving up throughout the entirety of everything.
Yeah. Another part of perseverance is technical difficulties. One of the biggest frustrations that we have today, right? Knowing that something's supposed to be working and it doesn't always.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be ready to address things when they don't work out the way we thought.
Yeah.
We have to be able to have these backup plans, and God shows us how we can do that. He shows us how we can just trust in him, and he will show us the direction.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is listening to be able to strengthen your knowledge and wisdom in a certain craft, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, God's going to direct me. And it's like you're working on your car and it's like, oh, God's just going to tell me how to do it. It's like, dude, why didn't you look at the instruction manual on how to fix that?
Yeah, like, don't be dumb with this stuff. Like, it sounds... It's
like faith isn't an excuse for being stupid.
Yeah, like, it really goes back to faith without works is dead, because it's like, if you don't put in the work and you just have an immense amount of faith, it's like, I think that also kind of, like, shows God that you're not serious, like, in a way.
Like, you're not willing to put in the effort yourself.
Yeah,
you're just letting him take care of everything.
It's like, yeah, it's like, thanks for trusting me, but I'm telling you right now... Go do this.
Mm-hmm.
Go like explore this avenue or whatever, and like you're not listening, and it's like that's why I think every opportunity is like it's important to evaluate and realize, okay, is this from God? Can I use this to venture into like the next thing I want to do, whatever. And like, it's important to remember like these things are like it's not just like always gonna be miraculous. Like it's not gonna always just be like you're randomly gonna just say, God, I really wanna be like a millionaire, and then like you're gonna become a millionaire in like like 5 months, like or not 5 months, like 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, like God can do whatever, but obviously like he has a plan, and
to prepare you to be like, if you want to be a millionaire first, it's like, one, what are your reasonings for wanting to be a millionaire?
If anything, God thinks like, yeah, maybe you should be a millionaire. But the fact is, are you actually willing to put in the effort to become one?
And also to steward everything wisely. So it's like, that's the thing, like we can really want to do a lot of things, but God ultimately knows best, and he knows where you should end up, and not just like where we think we want to end up. So it's like, yeah, it's like you may become a millionaire, but you're going to have to work really hard to become that millionaire, and God's going to bless you through it. But it's like, you got to put in the effort. You got to put in the work in order to get there.
Don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the unseen hours. They don't want to talk about the hours behind closed doors. They just want to talk about the reward. And it's really annoying because that for us, we put in a ton of work behind the scenes. Whether it's for websites, it's SEO, it's, a whole bunch of online different things. There's a ton of effort in order to produce something. And sometimes people don't see it the same way. They undervalue it.
They think it's just instant. And you're like, nope, it's not instant. Like,
there's a lot of work that goes into it.
There's a lot of work that goes into it. And
and the great part about having God as the core of our businesses is that he sees everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that sounds scary in some aspects because like you sin unknowingly all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like every single day at least.
Yeah.
But the fact that he sees everything, he sees that you're putting that little extra time. He sees that you're doing that extra effort. He sees that you are striving for something,
Yeah.
even when you don't know it.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to go for it, and
Yeah.
you're trusting in him through
It's
it.
like the dad who like sees that after you put in like the effort, like he sees you putting in effort, so he's gonna reward you because you're putting in that effort. So it's like if you're, whether or not you're doing something, like you're like in school. I know that's kind of like a bad analogy because I don't really believe in school anymore, but
Well,
it's like
yeah.
but it's like in school, for instance, like the kid who's like getting good grades, right? And he's coming back with like A's, and he's like showing his dad he's doing his homework, and he's like studying for tests, and he's talking to his teachers and whatever, and it's like he comes back with A's, and he's like, look, like I just got all these A's and stuff, and it's like, that's great, like let's, you know, go out to dinner or something and be rewarded. And it's like, that's
He's
the
like,
type
I
of
know that you
thing.
spent hours studying.
He's
I
like,
know
I
that you
saw
spent.
you
Yeah.
put in the effort for this, and now you deserve to have the reward. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the same thing, because it's like, how easy would it be for like, it's totally easy for God to just be like giving us anything we want. Like, but it would teach us nothing, and we'd also ultimately end up, I think, being dissatisfied with what we have,
And super
because
selfish.
of knowing the unknowing of like what it takes to get to that place. So I think, if anything, the work before the reward is actually the best part. You know, I think the work is probably one of the most growing times in the
other
whole walk in
words-
Christianity.
In other words, the work is the reward.
Yeah.
You know, because it's what developed the strength for the outcome.
Yeah. And it's like, I think too, it's really good to see like how God moves like in the season of your life where you're working, because your success typically isn't just like a fast, like all of a sudden now I'm a millionaire. Some people have that, but not everybody. It's like not all of a sudden you're going to become a millionaire. You're going to go in phases of like, okay, for instance, for us, it's like we've moved of like, the way we've thought of it is like, okay, in a year we went from a studio apartment to a 2-bedroom apartment, and it's like you see your success for like how hard you kind of like almost worked and learned to get there, and like what God knew you needed for that time in order to grow more and more. So it's like been kind of like, we weren't successful overnight. Like it's taken time. We've had to realize things, do things. Even like now, I wouldn't say we're completely like successful.
Like we're
But-
successful, but not to where we know that we could be.
Yeah. For the time being, we're content in where we're at, and that doesn't mean we stop striving, because we still strive, but we're content because it's like we know that whatever's meant for us, God will bring, and whatever's not meant for us, he'll take away. And it's like, that's hard to hear, and it's hard to even do, or I mean allow, but at the same time, it's like he sees the things you don't see, and he knows the things that you don't know. And it's like that's what comes with being fully surrendered and trusting in God, and the season of work before you can get to the place you want to be. But in the meantime, I think there's small moments, small wins, moments of being like really happy, content, because it's like, you know, most of our life, like we said, most of our life is spent in kind of like the valleys.
Yeah, like in the muck, in the work, in getting your hands dirty,
yeah.
like having the trust in God no matter what. Like,
Yeah.